Hey everybody, it's RPG Gilmore bringing you another build video. This time it's for my Healadin. The gear's gonna be same as my Tankadin, but I'll go through it again real quick. First I got the Batiri Shaman Mask, the Martyr's Placard, the Primal Restoration Abindas, uh, the face set, and I do have Holy Avenger on the main hand, and then just Gigantic and Radiance for that. The Boots of the Alpha, Sigil of the Devoted, Oathbound Paladin, Eye of the Giant, and the Shard of Orcus one. And then I run the Shard of Orcus set, and then a Ring of the Cursebringer, and Ring of the Hunter +5, and then finally just the Everfrost shirt and pants. For powers, when I'm running around in PvE, I do Radiant Strike, Divine Judgment, or Courage should be on. Then Aura of Vengeance, Oath Strike for your R2, Bond of Virtue for your circle, and then Valve Enmity for your triangle. It doesn't really change much once you go into dungeons. The only power you might switch out is Burning Light, and it really depends on the situation. Sometimes it gets changed for Bane. Other than that, it might get changed to Sacred Weapon. It really depends on more your playstyle, but either one can be interchanged as well. For feats, we have 3 of 3 in Toughness, 3 of 3 in Weapon Mastery, 5 of 5 in Divine Action, 3 of 3 in Exemplar's Haste, 1 of 3 in Wrathful Strikes, 3 of 3 in Force of Will, and 5 of 5 in Steadfast. For the Light Paragon, we run 5 in Gifts of Light, 5 in Light Touched, and 5 in Aura Gifts. And then we go 5 of 5 in Bound by Light, Flash of Light, Radiant Champion, and Echoes of Light. Then there's Beacon of Hope and Prism, and then 1 point into Purifying Fire, and 1 point into Vengeful Judge. And I'll explain why these are separated up the way they are, and once I get to the boons. In the boons, when you're just running around, you can have the power bonus, but if you do something like Temple of the Nine Gods, I highly suggest running the armor penetration bonus. Your defense, if your guild has it available, I suggest the hit points. And then the utility and PvP can be whatever you choose. I won't go through PvP for this one. For Sharendar, you just go straight across the bottom. You get 400 power, crit strike, action point gain, and then a chance to do more damage. And on kills, you can potentially have more power, which adds to your power share. In Dreadring, I went into crit, lifesteal, resistance ignored, another chance to proc damage, and then burning guidance. This is the big reason to run the 2 feats, Prism and Beacon of Hope, because what it does is the Beacon of Hope and the Prism are treated as heal effects, and Burning Light, when it says whenever you do a healing spell, you do 2,000 damage to enemies in the area, so it triggers off from each instance of those heals. It also triggers off your Valve Enmity heal, and it also triggers whenever anybody in your party hits your Valve Enmity target. So you get a huge amount of procs off from this. In Icewind Dale, I went 400 combat advantage, 400 stamina, 2% crit severity, up to 2000 power based on your stamina. And then Rousing Warmth for the factor that you heal constantly, so this is almost always going to be up. So it's just a free 3000 damage almost all the time. In Underdark, I went Power, Crit Strike, Regen because we don't need combat advantage, 5% shorter control effects, and then in this last tier you can choose whichever one you want. It really has no bearing on the build at all. In Tyranny of Dragons, I went Power, Crit, Armor Pen, Lifesteal Rating, and Crit Severity. In Maze Engine, I went Lifesteal Severity, shorter control effect durations, faster AP gain, and potential to heal when you're already healing. So this also triggers the damage procs that you get from Burning Guidance, and also from another one in Storm King's Thunder that I'll show in just a minute. In Elemental Evil, I took 300 power, 4% lifesteal severity, 400 crit strike, and then in the fourth tier, depending on your, once again, on your play style and where you are at in the game, I went for the higher crit strike, but you could also very well take the higher recovery. In Storm King's Thunder, I went 2% control resist, 400 stamina gain, potential to do up to 2000 damage back at the attacker, 3200 max HP, and then 3 of 3 in Healing Warmth. This is the other effect that triggers off from all of your heals, so your Vow of Enmity heals, your Beacon of Hope, and your Prism. So once again, you get a lot of triggers off from this. The way I have it set up, you can do up to 6000 damage per trigger, and that's a small AoE around you. In Cloak Descendancy, I did go Despair. It doesn't really trigger that much, and you could very well take Aura of Hope. It's whichever you prefer. More people tend to take Aura of Hope, though. Here you want Fiery Frenzy over Healing Heat, because we already do a significant amount of healing that we don't need this. And then once again, you can choose either one of these. I just went with the Lifesteal one because with one of our mount powers, Assassin's Covenant, it gives us additional power. And then the fourth one, I just went with a Barrett Power. It's just another damage proc. And then finally in Jungles of Chult, I went 3 of 3 in Tyrant's Terror for the power and HP. And then my fourth point was into Soul Siphon. This is great for doing a lot of AoE damage, so it's good for clearing out groups. For companions, I run the Blacksmith, the Aranea, the Arinyas of Belial for the crit severity. I run the Air Archon as the primary companion, and a Paranoid Delusion for if anything gets knocked prone, disabled, or held or rooted, you get extra damage that way. Some other companions you can use are the Earth Archon, which I probably will switch with my Paranoid Delusion once I get it to Legendary. I also enjoy using the Death Slot. This can proc a fairly substantial amount of poison damage. If you're lower in your crit strike, so like around less than 50%, I would suggest using this because it gives you a pretty substantial damage buff. You can also use the Stalwart Golden Lion or the Energon for the extra HP, which gives you in turn more survivability. Or if you are in a big group with a lot of the Velociraptors, you can run the Velociraptor as well. And then for mount powers, I use the 2000 power. Once again, like in my tank video, if you need your encounter powers up faster, like say they're not proccing correctly, you want to run the 2000 recovery. If your daily power isn't coming up fast enough, either your Shield of Faith or your Divine Judgment, you're going to want your quick action. And you don't really need movement. And then for the insignias, I use Assassin's Covenant. This gives you a fairly decent amount of power. I believe I'm getting like 3,600 out of it right now. Artificer's Persuasion. Whenever you use your artifact, you get a bunch of buffs to all your a lot of your main stats. Magistrate's Patience, which does a fairly decent dot and hot effect on you when you crit, so that's more if you're a higher crit build. Protector's Camaraderie buffs your power and defense. And then Gladiator's Guile, make sure you can get into the fight fast enough. And then I will show you a little bit of just how I go about killing and the rotation out in Chult. I'll just find a decent group. We won't kill these little chompies. Let's see if the scorpions are up. Those ones aren't. Well, here, let's kill these. You just run Valve Enmity, charge up your Blinding Light, and that's usually the rotation. It kills most stuff in 1 or 2 hits, and then you just finish off with Oath Strike. And that's usually about it. And if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, or subscribe. Thanks. Bye.